Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where today is the first day of the rest of my life, the rest of my retired life. And I am so excited. I celebrated today by sleeping in until 8:45, which thing I have not done in years. It felt great. And so we're off and running with our retirement life and going to be dedicating a lot of time to our channel. We have some good ideas about how some little changes that we want to make that hopefully will be make our channel much more useful to our community. So today we're going to be revisiting a video one of our very first videos on canning ground beef or hamburger, whichever one you like to call it. It has turned out to be one of our more popular videos. So obviously there are a lot of people who are also wanting to learn how to do it. Well, why would you want to do it in the first place? We've had a couple of people over the years say, I can't stand this canned hamburger. It tastes just like dog food. I don't really have a response for that because I have never done a taste comparison. But we use our hamburger mostly for recipes that are mixed foods. Now, our canned hamburger looks just like this. This was done in January of this year. So it's been almost a year ago. And we use this bottled hamburger all the time, particularly for making taco soup. But we use it in just plain tacos or soups or stews or really anything that requires hamburger as an ingredient. I don't believe have ever used it just plain out of the jar for anything. It's always mixed with other seasonings and other foods. And so if there is, and obviously anything canned is going to taste different than its fresh counterpart. And the same is true with hamburger.
We use it for chili too.
Oh yeah, we do. We do. That's a good call, honey. Thank you. We do use it for chili, and so for us, it is a very versatile protein source that we have stored. And it's time for us to put more out there because it's been about a year since we have added to our shelf. So the other reasons that we can hamburger or ground beef is because of the cost. When you can a batch of anything, you are locking in today's price for that food. And so we did a little research earlier this morning on, now I have no idea how much we paid per pound for the hamburger that we put in this jar. It's far less than the $5.99 that we paid for this 13 pounds from Costco this week that we're going to be canning. $4.99, thank you. So for $4.99 a pound, we did cost comparisons on commercially canned ground beef. And I really didn't even know that existed. Now the prices that we found ranged from 90 cents an ounce, ouch, down to 60 cents an ounce. And for today's batch of hamburger, to get this much into a jar, is going to cost us 34 cents an ounce. That is quite a savings. These cost comparisons are just kind of ballpark. The other thing is the convenience. It is so wonderful when I was working to come home and decide, oh, let's have taco soup tonight. And we didn't have to think about bringing ground beef from the store because I could just go shopping right out in my food storage, pick out a can or a jar of this hamburger and then come in the house and make whatever it is, taco soup or whatever. So it's very convenient. And then of course, what we stand for is emergency preparation. If difficult times come, we want a good source of protein on our shelves, which means we can meat. Now, there is one more thing I want to talk about before we get started, and this is an issue that is very, very common. As an educator for 60 years, one of the things that educators are always concerned with is knowledge transfer. There is a whole body of research on how knowledge is transferred from a classroom setting into real life. One of the things that we talk about in our classes is how we can help people transfer knowledge. So we get questions all the time. Pam, will you please show us how to can X in the Instant Pot Max or in the NESCO? And so that is an issue of knowledge transfer, because these people may very well know how to do it with their stovetop canner, but they've not been able to make that transfer to their electric canners. And so today I want to have this be a bridge of how you can transfer the USDA guidelines for canning hamburger to, we're going to do it in 3 different canners. And you will see that the USDA process is identical. So if you can do it for one type of canner, you can do it for another type of canner, provided you know how to operate the canner. And that's the bottom line. Take out your instruction book, read the instructions so that you know full well. So we're going to get started on this. Now, according to the USDA, we never, ever, ever in a zillion years can ground meat of any type, sausage or beef or any ground meat, without pre-cooking it. Now, the reason is, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn this on. The reasoning for that is, notice this is a big glob of meat. If we put raw ground meat into jars, it is going to come together and form great big globs like this. Can you imagine the heat transfer that is needed to get to every piece of food clear to its center, to make sure that it is in the kill zone, to do away with the possibility of botulism spores trying to penetrate big globs like this? So all we're doing when we pre-cook this, and we do not pre-cook it until it is done, we just brown the outside edges so that it's not going to come together in the jar and form a big mass. So everything, just about everything we do with pressure canning, we always have to think about heat transfer inside the jars. So I'm going to stir this around until it is just slightly browned on the outside, enough to where it won't stick together. Then I'm going to be collecting it into this big bowl. Then we will move it into the jars. We want to keep it warm as possible because we want it warm going into the jars. So I will come back when I'm ready to show you about how much I have cooked this pan of meat. All right, so this is now done. You can see that it's still plenty pink. It's not done all the way, but it has boiled off some of the juice, some of the fat. Now what I'm going to do is get the meat into this bowl, and then I'm going to pour the juice off into a separate pot because I'm going to cover this meat with some broth. And I want the juices from this meat as part of that broth. You will notice that in this this jar that I have canned a year ago, there is a ring of fat. Even after trying to get out as much fat as possible, this still happens to every one of my jars. Sometimes it's closer to the top, but it is just a little thin ring. It doesn't go straight through. It is not a crust there. The meat, if you can see, goes all the way to the top. This siphoned a little bit, and so the fat hangs out at the top of the liquid layer, and it's just a thin ribbon around the outside edge. Nothing to worry about. Okay, I'm going to pour this off, start another batch, and we will come back when I've fried up all the meat. It took about 20 minutes for me to cook the meat. I actually had 2 frying pans going, the one up here, and then I had a big one back here. And so here is the end result of our meat. We have a lot of good meat. It's cooked probably about halfway through, which is exactly what we want. The jars are just barely out of the dishwasher, so they are still warm. And so the next part is going to go very fast. And so we're just going to fill these jars and tamp them down just a little bit. Leave a good inch headspace. All right, we'll be back when I have all of these filled, and I'll show you the next part then. So 12, 13, 14, 15. And so we have the equivalent of about a pound, a little bit less than a pound per. So I'm now going to fill with this broth, and the broth is a mixture of water with bouillon plus the drippings from frying the hamburger. All right, filling up these last three. I may have overfilled a couple of them. We'll see in just a minute. We don't want to run the risk of siphoning, so I may be spooning a little bit out on a couple of these. So I'm now going to be doing the air bubbles, releasing the air bubbles. Okay, so that one's just about right. I have my paper towel with vinegar on it. Vinegar cuts the oil. So we'll wipe all of these. Finger tight. We have followed the USDA guidelines so far for this entire batch. Now, if I weren't doing a bridge today from across 3 canners, I could fit all of these in my Presto canner, my Presto stovetop canner, which is my go-to canner. But we're going to do 2 electric canners today, the NESCO and the Instant Pot Max. So we will fill them first. Here is where knowing the instructions for your particular canner come into play. We're still following USDA rules, but now we have to get the canners going according to their individual instructions. So the NESCO says to put 2 quarts of water in the bottom, which we have done, and then we are going to put in 5 pints. NESCO prefers that you use regular mouth jars because it can be difficult getting the wide mouth jars out, but I can get them out just fine. Okay, so here we go. There were 2 quarts of water in the bottom. When this is the 15-pound pressure gauge pressure regulator, this is the 10-pound pressure regulator. So be sure you have the correct one on there, and it should be up. It has 2 positions. It's down when you want to hold everything inside. You put it up for venting, and we are going to be doing the venting first. So here's what we do on this one. It is plugged in. I come to the front panel, make sure that the lid is closed all the way. Then I select high, and then the time. 75 minutes is what we want. Whoop. So we have 75 minutes and start. That's all there is to this one. This little racetrack run around will continue to do that until it has brought the canner up to where it is venting. Once it is venting, this will ding at us and it will start counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 for 10 minutes of venting. Then at the end of that 10 minutes of venting, we move this to the lower position, which is, what is it called? Airtight, and the pressure begins to build up on the inside so that then the timing starts on the canning. So again, I just put it back to exhaust, and this one is now ready to go. So for the Instant Pot Max, there's a rack in the bottom, just exactly like there was in the bottom of the NESCO. It's dry. So according to the Instant Pot Max, we put these 4 pints in first, and this will do only 4 pints. And then we fill water up to about halfway up the jars. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right, so that took about 6 cups of water. So then I'm going to put the lid on and lock it in place. So it was plugged in, so now this is on. I have preset the elevation to 5,000 feet, so it knows electronically what needs to happen to get this up to 15 pounds pressure. So I'm not concerned about that because it has a temperature readout right here, and I can read to be sure that this gets up into 240 and above, which is in the kill zone. So I am going to select canning, and an hour and 15 minutes is 75 minutes, the same thing. And I've got pressure is on max. It automatically puts the keep warm on, so just live with that. And then we're ready to start. So it just went on. The internal pressure is now 70, 75, 77 degrees inside the canner. This will keep telling me what the temperature is. This automatically does its venting. I don't have to do anything else to this canner. It now just runs its batch. But I monitor all the time, walking through the kitchen to be sure. These are 2 pressure pots I have going in the kitchen. They're very safe. Nevertheless, good safety practice is that we monitor things that we have going like this. These will go outside in our stovetop Presto, and following the instructions for that canner, we have the water on simmer out there, just barely simmering. And it's a big canner. It's 23-quart capacity. It will hold 7 quarts or it will hold 16 pints. I've done actually more than that. I can get more to fit if necessary. But I'm going to go put these 6 in, and I'll meet you outside. So you can see inside this canner with the steam coming up, it's barely boiling. And the water level is right here, so it's very low. But that's what we want. We want more steam than water in here. And so I'm just going to put these in. I can hold them by the lid, but the jars are pretty hot. Steamy in there. Okay, I've evenly distributed them around so you can see how that is. It would fit more, of course, but we don't have more. So the lid is going on. I'm now going to turn the heat up. We'll bring it to a full rolling boil. We'll wait for this to vent. These are instructions for this canner. You wait for this to start venting, and then you time by hand 10 minutes when this is really spouting steam. And then after that is 10 minutes, that means that the air inside has been replaced by steam, which is exactly what we want. If we leave air in a canner, the temperature doesn't get up high enough. So we need to expel all of that air and replace it with steam. We will then come back and put the weight on right here and bring the temperature up to 13 pounds pressure for our elevation, PSI, 13 PSI. We keep it between 13 and 15. And we will then start the timer only when this has reached full pressure. Okay, so now we've got some steam. It's not good enough steam yet. Full head of steam right here. For 10 minutes it's been doing that. So now we've closed out that steam, and the needle is going to start rising to 13, and then when it gets there, we'll start our timing. So we will bring you back when everything has naturally cooled down and we're ready to pull them out of the canner. Oh, it is cold out here. It's about 45 degrees, and middle of the day. This canner finished last, but it has cooled down completely first. It only finished last by about 2 minutes. So anyway, it's completely done. We'll double check to see. Yeah, no more pressure coming out. So we'll get this out of the way, pulling out the hamburger. And there it is. It's lovely. Doesn't look like we had much siphoning at all. These have been sitting out here probably for an extra 5 to 10 minutes, which is what we want so that they don't siphon. There we go. There was one. Let's just check. Nope. Yes. 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 So we have only one that hasn't. Okay, so 6 down, 9 to go in the house. It'll still be a few minutes before we get to those. Both electric canners are finished and have been sitting for about 5 or 6 minutes, and they took an extra 20 minutes beyond what the one outside took. I have brought the 6 from the Presto canner outside inside because it is cold and I want all of them together. So let's listen. All 6 have sealed, so that's good news. The way that you tell the NESCO is ready to open up is that you gently raise this. If steam is still coming out, drop it back down until you can just touch it and there's no more steam coming out like right now. And so this is now safe to open. And I will be getting these out. The first one, when you do the wide mouth jars, is a little bit difficult. So I just do that and grab it and then move it over. And then it's easy to get the rest. Okay, those look just great, and we should probably start hearing some popping soon. Let's go over, oh, there was right on cue. Okay, now getting these out. So, look at our wonderful results. We have 15 pints of canned ground beef that will now go on our shelves out in our food storage area. And this will be just wonderful. This will be at least a half a year supply for us because we have other meats that we have out there that we alternate through as well. So I hope that this is a bridge. And just to review, we followed USDA guidelines in all 3 canners. The only difference was knowing the instructions of how to operate the canner. That's the only difference, which tells you that you can can any USDA approved or tested recipe from any other trusted source in any of these, and all you need to know is how to operate your canner, because the recipes don't change canner to canner. So I hope this has been helpful, and we will see you at our next video.